Hey, it's Baz, filmmaker dad and the guy behind 20 Minute Gamer. Today I am back with another one. I am playing another Tomb Raider game, and this time it is Tomb Raider 4, otherwise known as The Last Revelation. Now I'm playing this as part of the Remastered Tomb Raider 4 to 6 collection, and I must admit this is a game that I have vague memories of playing and enjoying, but I can't actually remember the game that much. I must have only played it a couple times perhaps, but I do remember being super hyped for this back when it originally came out. I think I remember buying magazines and even walkthroughs and things like that. Just really getting hyped for this one. So it's quite nice to go back and actually play it and see how it has aged and if it holds up to the 20-minute test. Is this a strong opening for a video game? Let's find out. Story. So I must admit, in this, there isn't much of a story at all. It opened up with a cutscene and it was quite cool. It started off on black and you had some man kicking through a wall and he was silhouetted against the sun, and then he dropped down into some sort of tomb or something like that. I'm assuming that because it's a Tomb Raider game, but it could be anywhere really. And that's it. There's nothing else. You basically have like a 5-second cutscene, which I was expecting it to be bigger. You know, the last Tomb Raider games all had pretty lengthy cutscenes to get you into the game. But it opens up and it tells you that this is 1984 and you're basically led around by this German guy. I'm assuming he's German because he's called Werner and he speaks with a very mock German accent. And he's basically showing you around this level and that's it. There's not much else to go on. Story-wise, you don't know what he's there for. You don't know what your relationship is to him, and that's it. He just seems the way that he's speaking to you, he's kind of like a teacher or a mentor, but there's something actually quite creepy going on between him and Lara. He mentions a bit of a romantic relationship at one point, and it's a little bit weird because you get the impression that by her voice, she's actually quite young in this, even though she's the same height as him. She seems quite young in this one. Her voice is very different, very childlike. So I'm wondering if she's kind of early teens and he's some sort of seedy man. But that's all from my imagination, which is saying something, I guess. But there's not much in here for story, and I'm definitely not hooked, and I have no interest in continuing to play it based on the story alone. So I'm going to give this a 3 out of 10. Controls. So I played this in tank controls, the same as I used to, and it's all feeling very familiar. Anybody who's played Tomb Raider before will know how this works, but you've got quite basic platforming and it's all assigned to an action button, a jump button. You can now crawl, and there's also the addition of a sprint function, which was never there in the other Tomb Raiders as far as I'm aware. And it's actually quite cool to dash with this option, and you can swim as well, and there's some basic platforming, and the controls felt very similar to what they did in the remasters of the first 3 games, and that was that they were true to the original, I felt, even though it was a little tricky coming back to tank controls in the modern era after playing modern games. I think that the tank controls are the best way to experience this game. The only thing I found that was a little tricky was activating levers. You have to be in an extremely precise location for activating levers. There was one lever and the man was saying, just push it or pull it. And I was stood next to it, I was strafing, I was walking left and right, I was turning, I was jumping around, and I just could not get near it. And then the little icon popped up saying interact with it. And actually, those little guidance icons, I think they're on as default, but they could be turned off as they were in the original game. And I imagine without the icon, I would never have found the correct place to stand in for that. So that's saying something. I also found it was quite tricky to perform some of the moves. One of them was towards the end of my playthrough, which is where you had to jump and grab onto a rope and swing off. And I found that when I was letting go, when it seemed to be the natural time to let go of the rope, she just dropped straight down. So I don't know if that's a control thing or a physics thing or what, but it was a little infuriating. And it was actually the end of my playthrough, and instead of trying to get over that ledge, I just thought, you know what, I'm not going to bother with this. So yeah, I think controls is just as to be expected from a Tomb Raider game. Pretty good, but could be a hell of a lot better, and I'm going to give this a 5 out of 10. Atmosphere. I don't feel like there's a lot going on in this one to hook you in. I didn't massively feel immersed at all in the ways that I had done with Tomb Raider 1, 2 and even Tomb Raider 3, which I wasn't a huge fan of, but it did have that immersion factor. This one is very sparse on environmental sounds and specifically music. I didn't notice any music at all other than the title theme, which was a little bit strange, and it did give this one a weird feel. It also, the whole level was basically a tutorial, and the man that's speaking to you, instead of saying, you know, jump and grab that ledge, he's saying, push forwards, then press the action button, which really does just make you think this is a video game. You're not immersed. You don't feel like you're Lara. You feel like you are playing a tutorial of a video game. And I found that to be kind of infuriating. And at no point I felt immersed in this. I didn't feel like I was an explorer. I didn't even feel like I was lost like I did with Tomb Raider 3. I genuinely just felt like I was playing a tutorial of a video game, and not a fantastic one at that, unfortunately. So I'm going to have to give this one, for immersion and atmosphere, a 2 out of 10. It could be a hell of a lot better than this. Music and sound. Let's start with the positives, I guess. The sound effects are all there. They're all functional. There's some nice atmospheric ambient sounds going on. The caves, the water, the jungle, everything has a kind of a vibe that you would expect, although nothing goes above and beyond to alert you to perhaps where you are. There's nothing that says this is China or this is India as it was in the previous ones. It's all just very functional. The same goes with the sound effects. There's nothing fantastic going on here. You've just got basic jump and grunt sound effects, and to be honest, there was no combat in this at all from me, so I didn't get to try out guns and see what they sounded like. So nothing fantastic. And when it comes to the voiceovers, I thought that these were all right. They weren't amazing, and the fact that they were talking to me as a player as opposed to the characters talking to each other, you know, push that button and then press the action button and then hold down shift to crawl and all this sort of stuff, it just really did jar with me a little bit. The voiceover artists are fine. Lara does sound like she's an adult pretending to be a child perhaps, which is a little off-putting. And the man is doing a pretty bad German accent, so it did take me out of the experience a little bit. Although, if it's played for humor and it's meant to be silly, then it's definitely ticking that box. However, I feel like Tomb Raider 1, 2 and 3 all played fairly straight, and the direction here for the voiceover artists is a little off. As far as the music's concerned, disappointingly, I did not notice or couldn't remember any music in this at all. That's not to say it wasn't there. If it was there, then it was doing an extremely good job at staying embedded well within that sound mix. But there was nothing really in the first 20 minutes at all, apart from the title theme, which I wouldn't really include when I'm reviewing the gameplay. And that was it. So yeah, nothing for that. I'm going to have to give this quite a low one. This is going to be a 4 out of 10. Graphics and style. Now, when I'm talking about the graphics and style on this one in particular, I'm looking at the remaster and what they've done to bring it up to date. But to talk about that, I don't really have any memories of the original game. So I did flip between the original graphics and the modern graphics quite a lot in this playthrough. And I actually found more than anything, more than what I would think about commenting on the new graphics, is that the old game looked pretty damn good considering it came out so long ago. It almost had me questioning if this was a PS2 game or was it on any other consoles, but no, this was the same console generation as the original 3 Tomb Raider games, and that's kind of mind-blowing. There's a lot of detail going into the character models, the surroundings, and there is a real leap up in lighting and things like that. I noticed when she walked through a cave, there was a kind of glow light shining on her, which actually was a lot more subtle. In fact, it almost wasn't even there on the remastered version of the graphics. So yeah, the original game looks pretty damn good still. And the remaster, yeah, it just brings it up to date. So it smooths out the textures, it gives everything a higher poly ratio, so you've got nice rounded out characters. And there's also been some changes to costume, so Lara's top isn't as low cut as it was in the past, which I guess is a creative decision, which doesn't bother me at all, really. I don't really care what she's wearing. I can kind of see why they've done it, and at the same time, the original is a little bit weird. If she's supposed to be kind of a child or a little bit, you know, a bit more of a teenage age, it's a little bit weird that her boobs are so prominent, but there we go. But yeah, that's all been rounded out, pun intended. I did feel like it was a little bit less dense than the previous games. There's lots of volumetric lighting and things going on there, which does make this look a lot nicer. There wasn't as much foliage and stuff lying around, and everything did feel a little bit more grid-based as opposed to being kind of messier as they were in the previous 3 games, which did make it feel a little bit less organic. However, that was a complaint that I had with Tomb Raider 3, that it felt too busy, so perhaps they've looked at that and reflected on how clear the level layouts need to be. So yeah, overall this looked quite good. It wasn't fantastic, but yeah, my shout out goes to the original game, which has held up pretty damn well, and I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. Gameplay. What did I do in 20 minutes? Believe it or not, I didn't feel like I got anywhere near the end of the first level. I also didn't feel like I was doing anything particularly of note, such as exploring or discovering things. Because there was no story context in there, I was basically felt like I was playing through a tutorial, and that's not really cool. The other 3 Tomb Raider games have had kind of optional tutorials in the mansion house, which has let you explore and all this sort of stuff and get to grasp with the controls. However, this one does incorporate the tutorial into the first level. Now, one of the complaints I had with Tomb Raider 3 was perhaps that the controls were a little bit tricky and that I would have liked a little bit of guidance. This goes the opposite way in that it stops you every few seconds to show you how to do things. And I actually found it a little infuriating in that there were several times when I did a jump and then the gameplay cut to a cutscene where the man was telling me what to do. And when it came back to my character hadn't made the jump because I guess she just stopped in midair and been transported down to the ground, which was very disappointing. It kind of held me up a lot. It felt like every time I was making progress, it was stopping me and making me watch these really long, drawn-out scenes where the guy was talking and making these little wisecracks. And then there was always a big pause after he'd finished as well before I got to take over the controls. I found this infuriating, and I actually couldn't even control the camera during these scenes, which I felt like at least might make me have a look around and explore the environment and so on while I was waiting. There was nothing like that. It did just literally keep pulling me back to the certain places, and there was no exploration really. I just had to go where the man went. If there was any point where I wasn't sure where to go, he just appeared in the corner of the room and it was like, all right, okay, so this is where I'm supposed to go. There's some minor platforming going on in here, but it is all just doing what the man says. So crawl through that thing, jump up there, shimmy across here, go up this ladder. There was no real exploration at all. I never at any point felt free to find my own way around or even figure out door traps and puzzles and things like that, because he was literally saying, there is probably a lever over there, you probably need to pull it to open that door, which again is just hand holding me. I've said the word infuriating a lot when I've been doing this review. However, I do think that that sums up how I felt when I've been playing this. The gameplay really did just hold my hand and stop me from doing what I wanted to do. It just dragged on and on and on, and really there was nothing of note gameplay-wise in this one whatsoever. I don't know why they went in with the hard tutorial on this compared to the previous games, but there you go. That's a decision made perhaps based on feedback at the time after Tomb Raider 3, and perhaps they were milking it a bit, and yeah, now it just shows it's not really fun to play. Regarding combat, there is nothing here. There are a couple of wild boars, and Werner kindly takes care of them for me, but you don't even have a weapon. There's nothing like that, which I guess factors into the fact she's perhaps a little bit younger. He's got a knife, she hasn't got a knife. I'm assuming at some point this guy either traps you somewhere or he dies and you end up getting his weapon or something like that, but in a series that's famous really for blending combat with exploration and puzzles, there's no combat at all in the first 20 minutes, which I think is a little bit of a missed opportunity, especially when the rest of the gameplay is so flat. So yeah, really disappointing. This one is going to be a 3 out of 10. The standout moment in my 20 minutes is perhaps just the comparison, looking back at the old graphics and just seeing how far they had come from the original games to this one. I feel like there's been a really big leap, and I'm really genuinely surprised that this wasn't a PS2 or kind of next generation title. I also have a soft spot for water levels in Tomb Raider games, and just jumping in and swimming around underwater, it always does just put a smile on my face. Final verdict, is this worth 20 minutes? Look, if you've only got 20 minutes to play and you really want to get into a Tomb Raider game because you've perhaps never played them before, or perhaps you want to look back and see what classic Tomb Raider games were like, the opening of this game, regardless of what the rest of the game goes on to be like, is not good. It's a really slow start. It's really strange to really tutorialize the first 20 minutes or so of the game, and it just feels like a really missed opportunity. This should be really exciting. You know, you're playing as Lara as a child or a teenager perhaps, and just to see her perhaps have, you know, a little bit more energy, or, you know, use these sprint mechanisms a little bit more and things like that. But no, it's just a big tutorial, and unfortunately it's almost like I've just been playing through the mansion level of Tomb Raider 1, 2 or 3, where you've got the kind of the butler following you around and stuff, which are fun, but it's not really what you're here for. You just want to explore and see where you're going, and the fact that there's no story or anything like that to tell you what you're looking for or to give you any hints as to where the game's going to go, it's just really disappointing, and I would not recommend that anybody jumps into this if you've only got a short period of time. If, however, you are a dedicated Tomb Raider fan and you want to get on and play one of, which I believe is quite decently rated actually, perhaps this one needs a lot more time to really get going than the other Tomb Raider games, which I think is a little bit of a shame, especially for the format of this channel. So I'm going to have to give this one a 4 out of 10. I'm really sorry. So I'm sure that all the Tomb Raider fans are furious in the comments, and I look forward to reading all your comments and replying where I can. Have I got this one right? Is this really a bad game, or does it go on to become something absolutely spectacular? Is it better than the first 3, or is it feeling a little bit dated now? Let me know down in the comments, and as always, if you like this sort of content and you like hearing me talk about old games and new games and the opening of games and how they really suck you in and whether they're worth a play or not if you're only short on time, then please do subscribe. I really appreciate it. Thanks very much, and I'll see you on the next one.
Walk up to the ladder. Now press and hold action to climb up onto it. Keep this button pressed and use forward to climb to the top.